A very good evening to all of you. So as we all know that from 15th of September 2023, the mains examination for the civil services for 2023 has already started, of which the 4 GS papers, GS 1, 2, 3, 4 and the TSA papers have already been completed. So we want to start with an analysis video of all the GS papers. Here, the idea is not to overwhelm you with the analysis of all the 20 questions in a single video. The important point to note here is that the main intention of posting these videos is to take question by question and then help you understand how the question should be decoded in the examination, how to remain relevant to the demand of the question, and how to present your answer in a better format. Okay, so in one single video, if you attempt to cover all the 20 questions, that will not just overwhelm you, but that will also not help us to tell you exactly what we want to convey. So that is why we will go in an incremental manner, take every question and then try to decode it completely so that you have a holistic understanding of how to break down the question, how to understand the demand of the question, and how to write an excellent answer. So today we will be starting with the General Studies 3 paper, out of which we will be taking up the first question. So let us see. The first question reads, faster economic growth requires increased share of manufacturing sector in the GDP. So let's try to mark the key important keywords here. The faster economic growth, and then it is also talking about increased share of manufacturing sector in the GDP, especially MSMEs. And then you have to comment on the present policies of the government. See, here there are two things that I want to tell you. The first thing is that, see, several times UPSC gives a statement, a general statement like this. How it is given here, that the faster economic growth requires an increased share of the manufacturing sector in the GDP, particularly of MSMEs. Now, many people have a tendency to just read the statement and then skip it altogether and then just start writing from the present policies of the government. This is something that should not be done. UPSC has given a whole sentence, it has built a context for you, it has given you a backdrop, and you are required to give a little bit of comment on this context that is given by UPSC. So when the question is saying that the faster economic growth requires the MSMEs, okay, requires an increased share of manufacturing sector, especially MSMEs. So the gist of this whole statement is it is talking about the importance of MSMEs. Okay, so even if it is a 10-marker question, because we have just one demand of the question, which is about commenting the present policies of the government, commenting on the present policies of the government. This is the only demand of the question. So in such a case, you have scope to give a brief commentary on the context that is given by UPSC. This should not be missed. So when you are starting off the answer, do not start by directly talking about the government policies, but do give a brief context, do give a brief explanation on the context given by UPSC. In this case, it is the importance of MSMEs. Okay. The second important thing that I want to highlight here is that the question is saying comment on the present policies of the government. See, we all will be knowing a lot of policies that the government has undertaken for the MSMEs. Okay, so the question or the demand of the question here is not just to list down these policies, but it is for you to comment upon these government policies. You have to say how these policies can actually benefit the MSMEs. For instance, if there is a scheme that provides loan or credit for the MSMEs, then you should not just mention that, see, there is this scheme which provides loan to the MSMEs. Rather, you should write a brief comment upon the scheme. That is, this will help the MSMEs to have access to formal channels of credit or whatever. Okay, whatever be the comment. So it has to be a comment on the government policies and not just a listing down of the government policies. Okay, not just listing of the government policies. So these are the two things that you have to remember when we talk about the demand of this question. Okay, now let us see what should be the introduction. As we know that the context of the question is talking about the importance of MSMEs, right? So you can start your introduction by showing the importance of MSMEs. Okay, see, I have seen several students who start the answer in a very generic sense. Okay, now for instance, in this case, I'm saying that you have to start the answer by showing the importance of MSMEs. There will be some students who will write a very generic introduction saying that the MSMEs have a very important role to play in the economy, let us say. Okay, this is a very generic introduction, and I do not advise you to go for such introduction at all. Okay, so do not go for a generic introduction where you're telling that the MSMEs are very important for the growth of the country, or MSMEs are important for the national development, something. So this becomes a very generic introduction and it does not add much value to your answer. Okay, so whatever you want to write, you add a little bit of further value to it and also choose some better words. Let us say in your introduction you are saying that the MSMEs play a catalytic role, okay, in the prosperity of the country by contributing nearly 30% to the GDP of the country. Now this is a little bit specific introduction, and this is also highlighting the importance of MSMEs that we are talking about. Okay, so let your introduction not be very generic, let it be specific, saying that the MSMEs are playing a catalytic role in the prosperity of the country by contributing nearly 30% to its GDP. This is a very precise introduction and also a very specific introduction. Okay, now we then have to go and address the importance of the MSMEs as briefly as possible, because remember that the main demand of the question is still asking you to comment upon the policies of the government. So this is the core demand of the question, which has to be devoted the maximum amount of space. Okay, for a 10 marker question you will be getting 2 pages. Okay, so the commenting on the government policies being the core demand of the question should get the maximum attention, but you will still have to make a reference to the importance of the MSME, because that is the context in which the UPSC has asked the question. So how do you explain the importance? You can probably use a hub and spoke diagram if you want to make it concise, or you can just write 1, 2, 3, 4. The way you choose to write it, but just make sure that you are concise in it. So in this, for instance, you can say that it contributes nearly 44% to the exports of the country. Therefore, it is important. Okay, and you can see that it is also important for the socio-economic development of the country, because nearly 12 crore people are employed in the MSMEs. So this shows the socio-economic importance of the MSMEs as well. And here again, remember that in each of the point that you are showing the importance, you need not have to quote a data or a figure. Okay, in 1 or 2, if you say that if you quote some fact, that is enough. In rest of the points, you need not have to quote figures. Okay, so if you quote some data in every point, it will become too much. Okay, if you don't quote data at all, that is also not good. So let's quote data in a point or 2, and in the rest of the points you can just write the general importance of MSMEs. For instance, MSMEs have a major contribution to make in terms of reducing the inequalities. Okay, they also provide raw materials. Okay, many of the MSMEs, they provide raw materials to the other major industries. Okay, so they actually support these large scale industries, okay, by providing raw materials to them. Okay, so these are some of the other importance of MSME. Apart from the fact that they contribute 30% to the national GDP, they contribute to 44% of the exports. They also have a role to play in the socio-economic development by employing nearly 12 crore people. They have the capacity to reduce the inequalities, to reduce the urban-rural divide. They also provide raw materials to the major industries. They support the large-scale industries this way. Okay, and it is because of this importance of the MSMEs that the union budget has this year allocated nearly 22,000 crores to the MSMEs. Okay, it is because of the important role that they play in the economy that the union budget has allocated 22,000 crores to the MSME sector. Now this brings you to the second part of the question. It is because of this importance that the government is also taking a lot of measures to help the MSMEs. Okay, so now let us list out the measures that the government has taken to help the MSMEs. And remember that we are not just listing the measures taken, but we are also making a commentary on that. Okay, so what are all the government measures? See, you may know some, you may not know some. Okay, so some of you may have absolutely no idea about the measures that the government is taking, but you can still make a good answer for this. For example, if you do not know any of the measures taken by the government to support the MSMEs, any of the specific measures, you can still talk about, let us say, Make in India, because you know that Make in India wants to make India self-reliant in the manufacturing sector, Atmanirbhar Bharat banana hai. So that is why Make in India is definitely an initiative by the government which is trying to support the MSMEs registered in India to manufacture locally. Okay, so this is one scheme. Second, definitely you can think of some credit schemes that the government could be giving to the MSMEs. Okay, you can also think about some schemes which the government is giving to the MSMEs to develop their the spirit of entrepreneurship and innovation. Okay, and is helping the MSMEs to upgrade their technologies. So even if you do not specifically know about any scheme that the government has taken, based on these broad ideas, you can still tell that the government is taking these types of measures. Okay, so do not leave this part of the question just because you may not know any specific measures being taken by the government. You can still broadly make a good answer out of it. Okay, so let us talk about the measures. I am listing down for your reference more number of measures, but being a 10 marker question, you will not have the scope to write more than 5 measures. That too because you are not just writing or listing down the measures, you're also making a commentary on that. So that is why it will take some space and you won't be able to write more than 5 to 6 measures. But for the sake of your understanding and your benefit, I'm listing down more number of measures. Okay, so one is the Make in India, of course. Second is you can think of institutions like SIDBI. Okay, SIDBI and the microfinance institutions, okay, and other small non-banking finance companies who are coming together to provide loans, cheaper loans, okay, on a lesser interest rate to the MSMEs. So this will have, so the MSMEs will not face credit crunch. Now here, what is your commentary? That this scheme is going to tackle the credit crunch among the MSMEs. This is your commentary. What is the scheme? The scheme is just that these people are offering lower interest loans to the MSMEs. That is the scheme. But what is your commentary? That this can tackle the credit crunch being faced by the MSMEs. Okay, so remember that you make a commentary on every scheme, but also make sure that your commentary is very concise and precise. Okay, the third thing you can talk about is the Udyam Assist platform. Okay, Udyam Assist platform. So this was brought this year itself in January 2023. Okay, so this is basically where those MSMEs which get registered, which get themselves registered, so for them priority sector lending can be facilitated. So this is just to encourage more formalization of the MSMEs. So this can be your commentary. So this encourages formalization of the MSMEs. Okay, so next you can talk about the emergency credit line guarantee scheme. So many of the MSMEs actually faced a lot of issues during the pandemic, where many of them closed down, the others got into a lot of financial troubles, okay, and incurred heavy losses. So in order to support the MSME sector, which has undergone a lot of losses during the pandemic, this credit line guarantee scheme was launched. Okay, so the next thing you can talk about is the RAMP scheme. Okay, RAMP is nothing but raising and accelerating the MSME performance program. So this is also in fact World Bank assisted program. Okay, so this is going to assist the MSMEs to improve their performance. That is about RAMP. Okay, the next scheme that you can talk about is the Sphoorti. Okay, so many students ask me that Sphoorti itself, if you want to expand this is such a long name, it is going to take up a lot of words and it's going to take up a lot of time also. But just in case you're in a time crunch, I would suggest you can skip expanding Sphoorti, okay, because it does take time to write all the expansion. So suppose this, for instance, here UPSC has asked this as a first question, but this may be like the 8th or the 9th or the 10th question among the 10 markers. So in which case you may be running short of time, and it's okay, it's completely okay to skip the expansion and just write Sphoorti. Okay, so because there that time your most important priority is to complete the paper rather than worry about expanding the acronym. Okay, So Spurti is about, it is for regenerating the traditional industries. So the main focus here is to organize the traditional industries into clusters, so they have certain economies of scale and they have good competitiveness. Okay, so this is about Spurti. Okay, now before this special tip, I still have to discuss the other schemes. So the next scheme is about the PMS scheme, which is procurement marketing scheme. So many of the MSMEs, they have very limited access to markets, okay, access to very limited markets. So this scheme will facilitate better and more number of market access to the MSMEs. Okay, then next you can talk about the Aspire. So Aspire again is the you may want to expand this into a scheme for promoting innovation, rural industries, and entrepreneurship. So the idea here is just to improve the spirit of entrepreneurship and innovation among the MSMEs by setting up certain incubation centers, incubation and technology centers, so that a spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship is developed among the MSMEs. Okay, then there is also a scheme for technology upgradation. So you must have read about the Z scheme, that is zero effect, zero defect manufacturing. Okay, so such type of certification will definitely require some sort of technology upgradation of the MSMEs. In fact, one of the major drawbacks of the MSMEs, or the major limitations of the MSMEs in India, is that they work on obsolete technologies. So technology upgradation is very important to ensure the competitiveness of the MSMEs at the international level. Okay, so technology upgradation is again an area where the government is coming in support of the MSMEs. So we have already listed down around 9 measures, of which you can just select 5 and write them along with a good comment upon the scheme. Okay, so after the scheme, you are also definitely supposed to write a way forward. Okay, this way forward is nothing but a conclusion. Now don't presume that because you have listed down good number of schemes, you don't need to write a conclusion. Also, writing conclusion will take around 2 to 3 lines. So instead of that, I will list down 2 more schemes, so that will fetch me more marks. No, that is not true. Okay, so in order to give a completeness to the answer, in order to make the answer look wholesome and cohesive, it's very important to give importance to the introduction as well as to the conclusion. Okay, your conclusion need not span more than a line or 2. So here you can just say that thus increased focus on the MSMEs is the need of the hour if India has to aim for becoming a $5 trillion economy, or whatever. Okay, so such a small way forward you can definitely write. Okay, so this is about the scheme. Now there is a special tip that I want to give you. Now in this case, it is a 10 marker question, but in the exam you may have the same question asked as a 15 marker. Okay, so in such a case, how can you address the question? Okay, in such a case, you can have better categorization so that the presentation of your entire answer can improve. Okay, so in a 10 marker, because you just have 2 pages and you have many things to write, excessive categorization will only waste your pages, will only waste your space. So refrain from doing excessive categorization in a 10 marker. Okay, and just hit the demand directly. But in a 15 marker, for good presentation, you can go for a better categorization. For example, any government scheme for the MSMEs could be grouped into 4 categories. Okay, one is that it could be giving some financial support to the MSMEs. Second, it could be about technological upgradation of the MSMEs. Okay, it could be about skill development and training for the MSMEs. And fourth could be about the infrastructure support for the MSMEs. Okay, so any scheme that you can think of by the government will definitely fall under one of these 4 categories: financial support, technological upgradation, skill development training, and infrastructure support. So accordingly, whatever schemes that we have listed down, you can just group them into these broader categories so that your answer comes out with a good presentation. Okay, so this is the tip that you can incorporate if the same question comes as a 15 marker. Okay, so whenever you are facing any question, always think in terms of how you would present it if it is a 10 marker, and how differently would you present it if it is a 15 marker. Okay, so that is it about the today's question. So we will keep taking up one question every day, and we will break it down completely 360 degree and analyze it holistically so that you understand everything threadbare. Okay, thank you so much.